Okay, so very good morning. And last class we started with this topic of particle kinetics, which means now we have introduced the force in the system, and we started with discussion of Newton's laws. So Newton's second law, you all know. So the important thing is that it is valid only in an inertial frame of reference, or what we say inertial or Newtonian frame is the frame which is not accelerating or rotating. So then we had a discussion that where is that inertial reference frame, right? So is it at the surface of the earth or the core of earth or center of sun? So actually we found that all these objects are moving. So ideally speaking, there is no such inertial reference frame, or at least we don't know where is that such an inertial reference frame. However, for our engineering calculation purposes, if we want to do some simple calculations on the earth, having a reference frame on the surface of earth is good enough. If we want to do some interplanetary travel, or some those kinds of calculations, then maybe the center of sun may be a good reference frame. So depending upon what kind of problem we want to attempt, we have to choose the reference frame. For most of our engineering purposes, frame on earth is good enough. Okay, now coming to the next topic is, so as we started with kinetics, now we are dealing with accelerations, and we will see that accelerations are directly related to force, right? So that is what Newton's law said, that if an object is accelerating means we have to apply it force proportional to its acceleration. So accelerations due to changing speed or directions, it can be in flights or in travel. It can produce a lot of physiological effects and practical effects on the body. so so it depends upon a lot of things. So acceleration depends upon the magnitude, the rate of acceleration, direction of acceleration, duration, how much how much time are we subjected to that particular acceleration. And then there are some personal protective equipments and special kind of G suits and bodily suits are there for giving protection from accelerations and so on. So just going in a straight line doesn't make that much effect, but acceleration causes a lot of effect. And I'm sure if you have traveled in airplanes and some of these situations like flying in turbulence, or if you have a rough landing of an airplane, or even if you are traveling in a vehicle and if you have to have a sudden braking, right? So that is where you have a sudden deceleration, and that is where you feel that lot of acceleration, and which you can experience that amount of force that is acting on, if you are the passenger, then it acts on you, on your vehicle, and so on. So what is some of the practical effects of some of these accelerations? And accelerations, particularly if you are in flights and in high level these applications, they are measured in terms of G level. So G is basically your 9.8 meter per second square. And so if it is 0.7 times G, at such an acceleration, your vision will start to fail. Your eyeballs will start to bulge out, and those kinds of effects are reported to take place. At an acceleration of around 3 to 4 G, vision starts to blackout takes place for the vision after a few seconds. So the vision, so actually in our body, the eyes are one of the very sensitive what do you call organs for which are very susceptible to accelerations, and that's where it starts with eyes, and then and in few seconds it gets worse, and at very high values of G acceleration, a lot of destruction can happen. Okay, now coming to a quick discussion on system of units. So I'm sure you might be aware of, but when we talk about dynamics, we have four dimensions, four primary dimensions: force, mass, length, and time. And out of these four, three can be chosen arbitrarily. So out of these four, force, mass, length, and time, we can choose three arbitrarily, and the fourth one has to be compatible with Newton's second law. So for example, if we choose, so let's give you this example of the SI unit, which we all use, it's most common internationally. The base units are length, mass, and time. And therefore the force is the derived unit. So here you can see force is 1 Newton will be equal to 1 kg subjected to an acceleration of 1 meter per second square, right? Same way, if an object is freely falling, then if a mass of 1 kg is falling freely, then it is subjected to a weight of 9.8 Newtons, and it has got an acceleration vertically downward of 9.8 meter per second square. Now, again, in a wrong sense of our common day-to-day language, we say that weight of this mass is, we say it is weight is 1 kg, but actually physically the weight is 9.8 Newtons. So weight is the force by which Earth attracts that object, and this weight is 9.8 Newtons. Although in our common language we say that, okay, the weight of this object is 1 kg, but that is not accurate. However, in US customary units, the United States, there the standard is force, length, and time. So there, out of these four, the force is chosen as one of the primary units, length and time, and mass is a derived unit. So there the notion of weight is correct. So when they say what is the weight of a person, they say it is, so they say in terms of pounds. So there the force is expressed in pounds, and mass is a derived unit, right? So mass, again, there have two variations of it. So one is a slug, and another is pound mass. Right. Again, it's not necessary, but it's just an introduction for you to know about it. Okay, so coming back to our Newton's laws of motion. So this is the Newton's second law, force vector, or the resultant of all forces in a particular direction is equal to mass of that particle times the acceleration of that particle in that particular direction as observed from an inertial reference frame. Now, this vector equation can be resolved into the components. So if I have a 3D problem, then I can resolve this whole equation in three directions. Fxi cap plus Fyj cap plus Fzk cap is equal to Mai cap plus Myj cap plus Mzk cap. And then if I compare the I cap things, J cap things, and K cap things, then I get three equations. Right. So from this one vector equation, I can get three scalar equations, and these are the three scalar equations. The summation of all forces in x direction is equal to mass into acceleration of that object in the x direction. Similarly for y, and similarly for the z direction. Right. So this is the same thing. Now, these kinds of simple equations you can use to solve some simple problems, which I'm sure you have solved in your this thing. So first you have to get a kinematic relation between accelerations of A and B, and then using the tension and writing the force balance, you should be able to solve these kinds of equations. Okay. Now, a more another kinds of problems, again, you might have solved in your JEE is problem something like this, where you have a particle on top of another particle, and then there is motion, combined motion of this thing. So here we don't have friction, and we have to find the acceleration of the wedge A and the acceleration of block B, right? So so these kinds of problems, again, we can solve it using two different approaches. One is we can solve it with respect to an inertial reference frame, which is which is like in Earth. So I can solve a problem standing here and observing the whole system from here. And let us see a quick solution to that. So when we observe it from the ground, we observe that this wedge has got an acceleration a, or let me show it here. Yeah, so this wedge has got an acceleration a, and then to write the acceleration of block B, it has got two acceleration. One is with respect to A, it is moving downward, right? So with respect to A, it has to slide like this. So this is acceleration of B with respect to A. And then on this vectorially, we add acceleration of A. So using the concept of relative motion, we say that the block is constrained to slide down the wedge. So therefore, the motions are dependent and related by this equation. Acceleration of B, block B with respect to ground is equal to acceleration of A plus acceleration of B with respect to A. Right? So this is a vector equation and it is represented here. Now, after that, we have to draw the free body diagrams. So these are the accelerations that we have drawn with respect to ground. Next is free body diagram. So free body diagram of the wedge A is something like this. So it has got a weight mg acting downward, and then there is two normal reactions N1 and N2, and subjected to these three forces, this wedge is having an acceleration towards the right direction AA, what we have assumed. So now we can write this equation. So summation of forces in the x direction for this wedge is n1 sine theta is equal to mass into acceleration of that object in the right direction, right? So this is that equation. Similarly, we can write the equilibrium, or the Newton's second law for the block. So on the block, we have a normal N1 and a weight WB acting downward. And this results in two acceleration. I mean, the accelerations are AA and this, the vector summation of these two accelerations. And now again, we can, write force balance, but now we have chosen the x-axis like this and y-axis like this, right? So along the plane. So now along the x direction, we can say that the net force is in the negative x direction. So it is minus WB sine 30 degrees. And this should be equal to mass times the acceleration, right? So mass times acceleration is AA cos 30 minus B with respect to A, right? So from here. And from here, if we cancel some of these things, we get a simplified equation, something like this. And similarly, we can write force balance for this block in the y direction, and we get again a simple equation, an equation something like this, right? So now these equations we can solve together, and we can get the acceleration of A and acceleration of B with respect to A, and these things can be solved, right? So again, this is again quick review of you might have already seen. Now the second approach is solving this problem with respect to the wedge itself. So can we try to attempt to solve problem from standing from the wedge here? Now, when we stand on this wedge here, this is a non-inertial reference frame. And this one is an inertial reference frame. So now when we move to a non-inertial reference frame, we cannot apply Newton's laws directly, right? Because Newton's laws are valid only in an inertial reference frame. So therefore, to apply Newton's laws, so therefore to write the equations, we have to use the concept of D'Alembert principle. So to write the equations of motion in a non-inertial reference frame, we have to use what is called as D'Alembert's principle. And let me go to, okay, so I hope you can see this OneNote screen, and I would like to discuss here D'Alembert's principle. So D'Alembert principle is basically used for writing the equation of motion in an not in a non-inertial reference frame. That is the idea. So let us see, again, it is a very detailed principle based on virtual work and all those things, but let us see the very simple understanding of this principle, what it means in a simple term. Or let me first explain it by this example. So let us say we have got a mass m and we are applying a force F, and it is having an acceleration of F by m. Now, if we are on a cart and we are also moving, let us say, with acceleration a, then we see that this mass is stationary, right? So if we are in a situation, something like this, Now, if we are also moving with an acceleration a, then what we observe that this is stationary with respect to the moving frame. However, the forces are still acting, right? However, we are still having a force F acting on the system. So what D'Alembert principle says is very simple thing. It says that we have to apply an extra force, which is called as F inertial force or inertia force, which is also sometimes called as what is called a pseudo force. So what D'Alembert's principle says that for dynamic equilibrium of a system, resultant of all external forces and inertia force is 0. So what it says that summation of all forces plus an extra force which is called as F inertia. So this will be equal to 0. And what is this inertia force? The inertia force is minus of m times a vector. So from wherever you are observing, if we are moving with an acceleration a vector, the inertia force that has to be applied is minus of ma vector. So that is what is a very simple thing here. So what we are doing, that we are observing this mass, which is in reality, which is also accelerating. We are also accelerating. When we are observing it from an accelerating reference frame, we have to apply an extra force inertia force, which is equal to, whose magnitude is ma, mass of this object multiplied by acceleration from where we are observing, in the opposite direction of acceleration. So if I am accelerating towards the right, we have to apply this force towards the left. And now this system is in equilibrium. So now this object, from an accelerating frame, we are seeing that it is stationary, right? It appears to be in equilibrium. And therefore now I can say that F plus minus of ma is equal to 0. So effectively what we have done, so Newton's law said, when we see this situation, Newton's law said that F is equal to ma from an inertial reference frame. And now this term has been brought to the left side and it is expressed like this: F plus minus ma is equal to 0. In fact, this is a vector equation, so I can write it like this. Let me put here. So Newton's law said that F is equal to ma vector. And now if I bring this term on the left hand side, it becomes F vector plus minus of ma vector is equal to 0. And this term is what is called as F inertia vector. And this is the D'Alembert's principle, at least for us. So now we can have, complicated motion or complicated motion taking place. We can simplify, or we can easily write the Newton's laws in an accelerating reference frame using the D'Alembert's principle, right? So D'Alembert principle, we have to add an extra force, which is sometimes also called as pseudo force, because it is an imaginary concept. It is not a real force. It is just a way to write Newton's second law of motion, right? The same thing is true for circular motion. So if an object is rotating in a circle, then the acceleration is towards the center. The real acceleration is towards the center, which is equal to omega square r. And let us say there is a tension T, we are having a rope right to it. So then we can say T is equal to mass times acceleration, right? So this is, the equation of motion written with respect to the ground. And but now if we want to, if we are, let's say, also standing on this mass, we are also rotating. So we are in a rotating reference frame. So if we are in a rotating reference frame, then we have to add an extra inertia force, which is opposite to acceleration. So acceleration is towards center. So we have to add opposite to that. So it is mass of this ball times acceleration, which is omega square r. And now here there is another force, tension T. And now from this reference frame, we observe that this ball is stationary, which is in a so-called stationary in a moving reference frame. So now this is the inertia force that we have applied, F inertia. And now we say that this tension should be equal to your m omega square r, right? Or T minus m omega square r should be equal to 0. Same thing. So now here, if we write it like this, then this is what is called as centrifugal force. So the inertia force in case of circular motion is called as centrifugal force, which is again not a real force. It is it is an inertia force or a pseudo force due to the principle, D'Alembert principle. Okay. So using this concept, again, we can solve the same problem in inertial reference frame. Just that now, for example, this acceleration here, So in this, for example, now here, this acceleration will be 0, and because we are now standing on this block A, and now we have to, on this free body diagram, we have to add an extra force, which is something like this, right? So this thing will be MA times AA. And you can see that the equation will remain the same, just that this term will go on the other side, right? So this extra force will come here, which will be negative thing, and again the equation will remain the same. So it is just helps you in observation, but otherwise your equations are going to be the same. Last concept about linear momentum. So the same Newton's laws, when written in a little different fashion, leads to the concept of linear momentum. So if we have force, the net force is equal to mass into acceleration, and this acceleration, if we write as dv by dt, so your basically your Newton's second law can also be expressed as force is equal to rate of change of linear momentum, right? So dl by dt. And if the resultant force on a particle is 0, right? If f is equal to 0, then we'll say that this momentum will be conserved. And so the linear momentum will remain constant in both magnitude and direction if the force is 0. Right? So again, linear momentum conservation again leads to different class of problems and so on, which we will see in the next class. I think that's all for today, and stop this discussion.